An explosive new report reveals U.S. taxpayer dollars are going to Chinese students and scientists with ties to the Chinese Communist Party and Beijing's defense industry. The American Accountability Foundation says nearly 24 Chinese academics working at elite U.S. universities have essentially been spies for the CCP, stealing America's military secrets and technology, posing a major national security threat. The group found many of these researchers working on technology like AI and drones, and they were often funded by U.S. agencies, including the Department of Energy, the National Institutes of Health, and even the Pentagon. The report states there are numerous examples of active members of the Chinese Communist Party being appointed to sensitive positions at U.S. universities and Chinese researchers being placed in positions that will allow them to transfer technology and research to the People's Liberation Army and cultivate relationships with critical defense researchers in the U.S. The White House also reportedly in talks with China to further box in the Iranian regime. Yesterday, President Trump talked to Chinese President Xi Jinping by phone. China, of course, Iran's biggest trading partner. Trump did say last month he would impose a 25% tariff on any country doing business with Iran. Meantime, the administration increasing efforts to counter China's aggressive trade tactics and grip on the global minerals industry. The White House announced yesterday a new partnership with dozens of countries to start stockpiling minerals needed for national security and defense.
With these moves, we intend to build an ironclad network of new industrial supply chains to span the entire nation. We're going to create good-paying jobs, skilled jobs for the American labor force, and those people, those great workers, are going to be securing a new era of prosperity for American families, and I believe for many people all over the world.
Data shows China currently controls around 60% of the world's rare earth minerals and more than 90% of the global processing capacity. The White House expected to start seeing a measurable shift, they say, within the next 60 days.
Many experts say the days of simply fighting wars on land and sea will soon be over. At least that's what world powers are gearing up for. Space warfare is no longer just a concept in movies or books. It's actively unfolding. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. And China is obviously, one of the biggest adversaries at this point of the U.S. Yeah. Where do they stand with all of this?
So according to the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission's 2025 annual report, Beijing now explicitly views space as a warfighting domain. So what does that mean? Well, China's goal is space superiority here, not just for prestige, but more so to maintain a stronghold on information, which it sees as a prerequisite for winning future conflicts.
What does that actually look like in practice, though?
So over the past decade, China's basically launched more than 1,000 satellites, which has just dramatically expanded its ability to conduct persistent surveillance, communications also, and precision targeting, especially in the Indo-Pacific. So the report says that these capabilities are essentially designed to monitor, target, and challenge U.S. and allied forces, and also to support long-range strike systems, which is really concerning.
Well, if the U.S. falls behind, it sounds like some experts are simply saying this could reshape American life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, according to the Commission's report, losing leadership in space would mean more than just like symbolic defeat like we saw with the Cold War. It would really threaten U.S. national security, weaken deterrence, undermine economic competitiveness, and allow China to shape the rules, the standards, and the norms governing space for decades to come. So in their words, it would amount to relinquishing the advantage first that was originally secured during the original space race, and kind of putting it into terms that would be a lot more jeopardizing at this point.
Emma, thank you.
Thanks.
And much more to this topic online, including links to Emma's sources. Just scan that QR code or visit thenationaldesk.com.
Delivering a strong warning to countries trying to align with China. Yesterday, President Trump slammed the UK and Canada as reports show both countries are in talks with China to expand trade agreements.
Well, it's very dangerous for them to do that, and it's even more dangerous, I think, for Canada to get into business with China. Canada is not doing well. They're doing very poorly, and you can't look at China as the answer. I know China very well. I know President Xi is a friend of mine. I know him very well, but that's a big hurdle to go over when you get Canada. The first thing they're going to do is say you're not allowed to play ice hockey anymore. That's not good.
This week, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has faced backlash at home for getting closer with China. Recent deals include lower tariffs on Chinese goods, as well as large-scale shipments and imports of Chinese electric vehicles. Trump's threatened to impose a 100% tariff on Canadian goods if Canada does not shift its strategy.
Race is heating up and China is trying to take the lead. Just before the new year, a Chinese group filing applications to launch hundreds of thousands of satellites into space, sparking concerns the nation is trying to build a mega constellation. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joins us, and we know, Jeff, SpaceX has ambitious plans to launch more Starlink satellites, but China's proposal, it's nearly 4 times the size. Break down the details.
So right now, SpaceX has around 9,400 satellites in orbit with a very ambitious goal to significantly expand that number. China wants to launch nearly 200,000, sparking concerns about a mega constellation and how it might pose a security threat. A Chinese group filed the official paperwork for 2 satellite constellations back in December called CTC-1 and CTC-2. Each would have just over 96,000 satellites spread across 3,600 orbits. Chinese news outlets reporting similar to SpaceX in their Starshield satellites. These will also focus on security and defense. U.S. space experts saying we shouldn't be sleeping on China.
They have an aggressive plan to use space not just as a demonstration of national power or for exploration, but to use the strategic landscape of space to the advantage of the Chinese country.
According to data from the U.S. Space Force, right now China has over 1,000 satellites in orbit, marking a significant increase from the 4 or 5 dozen back in 2010. Under international regulations, the first entity to file for a specific orbital slot does have the priority there, which is why these new filings by China are being viewed as a space grab to lock in those slots before they're occupied by other companies like SpaceX.
The Trump administration's capture of Nicolas Maduro sent shockwaves through Latin America and across the world, particularly China. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. And Emma, I know that you were looking at a brand new report. Tell us what you uncovered about the level of influence of China in Venezuela.
Yeah, so the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, they just released a new report on their relationship, and it sounds like China has a massive stronghold. That stronghold exploded really after Hugo Chavez was elected in 1998, and in 2023, China and Venezuela officially upgraded their ties to what Beijing calls an all-weather strategic partnership. So that's one of China's highest levels of diplomatic relationships, and it signals long-term cooperation across politics, trade, energy, all that type of stuff.
And also, China has been accused of propping up Venezuela. Is this about Venezuela's natural resources?
Yeah, mostly comes down to oil and money. The report says Chinese policy banks have loaned more to Venezuela than any other country in Latin America. And analysts estimate Venezuela still owes China at least $10 billion in outstanding loans. And even with U.S. sanctions on Venezuela's oil sector, the report says China's become that primary destination for sanctioned Venezuelan oil, using methods like transshipments and shadow fleets, these tankers that are helping to keep the oil moving. And the other key detail here is that oil makes up over 88% of Venezuela's exports, and the report says it represents over half of Venezuela's fiscal revenue. So if China's buying that oil, it's not just a trade partner, it's really a lifeline.
It goes much deeper than just natural resources as well, and economic factors. Emma, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Later on, Emma will be back to dig into the cost benefits of China's influence in Venezuela.
I'm Atra Al-Nashar in Washington. Congress taking a big step Thursday toward limiting President Trump's ability to unilaterally order additional military action in Venezuela. America's adversaries, including China, are watching closely as President Trump sets his sights on Venezuela's massive oil reserves. In a new interview with the New York Times, President Trump was asked how long his administration will demand direct oversight of Venezuela following the capture of Nicolas Maduro. His answer, only time will tell. Pressed on specifics, 6 months, a year, longer? I would say much longer, the president replied.
If there was ever a moment for the Senate to find its voice, it is now.
Thursday morning, 5 Senate Republicans joining Democrats to advance a measure requiring Trump to get approval from Congress before future military action in Venezuela.
The motion is agreed to.
Senate Foreign Relations Chairman, Republican Jim Risch, confirms to us that Trump is pressuring Venezuela to cut ties with America's adversaries.
They have invited in the no-good nicks, Russia, China, Iran,
setting up shop right in our backyard. That's simply not acceptable.
China, America's largest competitor economically and militarily, condemning Trump's orders in Venezuela from the start.
China firmly supports Venezuela in safeguarding its sovereignty, security, and legitimate rights and interests.
The president's new national security strategy states, "We will deny non-hemispheric competitors the ability to position forces or other threatening capabilities or to own or control strategically vital assets in our hemisphere." Trump's moves in Venezuela are the biggest challenge to China's influence in the region to date. China is the top destination for Venezuelan oil exports, according to S&P Global. When Venezuela and China signed a trade agreement 20 years ago, then President Hugo Chavez called it a great wall against American dominance. In Beijing's strategy to expand its influence in Latin America in the past 2 decades, China's made roughly $100 billion in oil-backed loan agreements with Venezuela. Details are murky, but it's estimated Venezuela's outstanding debt to China is down to $10 to $20 billion. Militarily, China has a very limited presence in the Caribbean. Experts watching developments over the past week speculate that China's lack of response, aside from statements, signals Beijing is not interested in countering American military forces in the region. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar.